So your argument for color blindness, I think, is something that the right has co-opted. And so many in the Black community, if I'm being honest with you, because I want to be, believe that you are being used as a pawn by the right and that you're a charlatan of sorts.
Yo, what is up, everybody? This is your boy Big Y, aka Baldy, representing the bald truth. In today's episode, we are watching Coleman Hughes versus The View and Sunny Hostin in what appears to be an intellectual beatdown. So let's take a look into the video, dive into some thoughts. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section. If you like, subscribe. If not, ain't no problem. Ain't no problem.
The first question that I should ask you to do is explain to folks what you mean by this. Arguments for a colorblind America. What do you mean when you say that?
So a lot of people equate colorblindness to I don't see race or to pretending not to see race. I think that's a big mistake. We all see race, right? And we're all capable of being racially biased, so we should all be self-aware to that possibility. My argument is not for that. My argument is that we should try our very best to treat people without regard to race, both in our personal lives and our public policy.
Of course.
And the reason I wrote this book, thank you. The reason I wrote this book is because in the past 10 years, it has become very popular to, in the name of anti-racism, teach a kind of philosophy to our children and in general that says your race is everything. Right, and I think that is the wrong way to fight racism, and that's why I wrote this book at this time.
I'm sorry, baby. Yeah. Can I just point out that there is a reason for that? You know, when I went to school, getting any information about anyone's race was not taught. No history, there was no Black history, none of those things were taught. And here in America, 100 years ago when I was a young woman, that's how people saw you. That's how they judged you. So I think, I don't want to say it's your youth, but I think you have a point, but I think you have to also take into consideration what people have lived through in order to understand why there has been such a pointing of very specific racial things, like women couldn't go to get into colleges. If you were a Black person, there were a lot of colleges wouldn't accept you. Trying to equal the playing field. I think that's what a lot of folks have been trying to do. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
Now, I'm not gonna lie. Whoopi, them dreads, fire. Fire. If I had it like, bruh, I would have been rocking that same style if I still had it. But before this happened, believe it or not, I had dreadlocks that went halfway down my back. But I got good friends in my life that let me know I looked stupid when the hairline went back. So I chopped them things off. But anyways, the point is, she did make a valid point to a degree. But she's talking about something that happened 50, 60 years plus, backwards. We're trying to move forward. It's 2024, right? So we have a new generation of kids coming up, and we can't have the horrors and traumas of the past be instilled into them, because what ends up happening is their day-to-day decisions are affected by those horrors and traumas. And they're all taught as opposed to actually lived through. So now you have to think to ourselves, all right, how are we going to progress forward? And what's unfortunate is a lot of the people making this noise live in some of the biggest cities. We're talking LA, New York, DC, Chicago, where opportunities are abundant, resources are available. So for us to keep, harping back into the past, it doesn't make sense. So let's get back into the video.
I think that's your experience, and that's valid. As a counterpoint, when I was in 5th grade, we all watched Roots together in public school.
Yeah.
So these are different experiences. I think it's also different generations. It's different parts of the country, right? We have very different cultures all living together in one country. So I'm not going to deny that, but I view this notion of a colorblind society similar to the idea of a peaceful society, which is to say it's an ideal, it's a North Star. And the point is not that we're ever going to get there, we're not going to touch it, but we have to know when we're going forward and when we're going backwards. And we're going backwards when we're doing woke kindergarten in San Francisco, you didn't hear about this story?
No, but wait.
So one thing I should point out is I've actually never heard of Coleman Hughes. So I've never seen any of his interviews. Don't know what his beliefs are. Don't know his political stance. What I will say, though, is it's evident in this video, there's a certain level of attack that he's operating within, right? There's a thoughtfulness in how he's being able to rebuttal while not discrediting what Whoopi's trying to say via her own experience. What he rather does is take his own experience, mentions a generational gap between the two, and also talks about how there's a certain level of perfection that we should be striving for, even though we'll never attain it. There's no harm in actually going towards that vision. And I think the way he's representing all this so far, it's not anything that's like distasteful. You know, he's not trying to come in and just wreck some stuff. Like, he's actually trying to do something that's productive in this conversation. I respect that. Let's get back into it.
I want to get to the part of the book. You believe that public policies that address socioeconomic differences would be better at benefiting disadvantaged groups, and that race-based policies often hurt the very people they're trying to help. What are some examples of policies that would be better at reducing racial disparities?
So my overall argument is that class, socioeconomics, is a better proxy for disadvantage. We all want to help the disadvantaged, and the question is, how do we identify them, right? The default right now in a lot of areas of policy is to use, Black and Hispanic identity as a proxy for disadvantage. And my argument is that you actually get a better picture of who needs help by looking at socioeconomics and income. That picks out people in a more accurate way.
Well,
right. So,
not my question, but when you say that socioeconomics picks out people in a better way than race, when you do look at the socioeconomics, you see the huge disparity between white households and Black households. You see the huge disparity between white households and Hispanic households. So your argument, and I've read your book twice because I wanted to give it a chance, your argument that race has no place in that equation is really fundamentally flawed, in my opinion.
Well, there's two.
Wow. So I'm trying to keep it clean for this channel, but I gotta keep it 100 thou pow. She is acting like a bichon frisé. Now, this is a nationally broadcasted, and I'm assuming daily program, in which you would think they would display a certain level of professionalism, a certain level of je ne sais quoi, and instead of taking this opportunity to have a healthy exchange of ideas in this conversation, Sunny Hostin takes it upon herself to first demean Coleman Hughes and state, "Oh, I've read your book twice because I wanted to give it a chance." Knowing damn well, man, you got a production team that's already laid out cliff notes for you for whatever you're trying to push. Second of all, do not be that person who presents an issue and not immediately present a solution. If that's the case, you need to be flicked in the lips and shut up. In this day and age, man, that's what's happening a little bit too much. Everybody wants to rah, and has nothing to say about how to fix said issue. Let's get back into the video, man.
Separate questions. One is whether each racial group is socioeconomically the same. That I agree with you. They're not.
They're not, and the stats show that.
Of course, I agree with that fully. The question is, how do you address that in the way that actually targets poverty the best?
Great.
And what Martin Luther King wrote in his book, Why We Can't Wait, is he called it, we need a Bill of Rights for the disadvantaged. And he said, yes, we should address racial inequality. Yes, we should address the legacy of slavery. But the way to do that is on the basis of class. And that will disproportionately target Blacks and Hispanics because they're disproportionately poor. But it will be doing so in a way that also helps the white poor, in a way that addresses poverty as the thing to be addressed.
So everything he just said made sense, right? I've never read Why We Can't Wait by Dr. King, but the way he's able to paraphrase the intent for the Bill of Rights for the disadvantaged, it makes sense. It is logical. Meaning, attacking poverty as a whole from a socioeconomic standpoint and not having it be race-based. Think about it, from that time period, our white counterparts who are dealing with poverty, if they're to see that us minorities dealing with poverty are getting preferential treatment from the government via legislation and bills, and they're not, shit, they already hated us back then. They gonna hate us even more. You get what I'm saying? Shoot, a broke person is not a happy person. Trust me. When I was broke, couldn't afford a McDouble, and I don't even like McDoubles. Shit, there'd be veins in my forehead that never existed. You get what I'm saying? You learn to like canned tuna and sardines real quick. And if you put enough salt and pepper, a little bit of hot sauce, it'll do the trick. But nobody wants to eat that shit. So I can understand the alleviating of the tensions between the races by helping everybody out. It just makes sense. Let's hear the intelligent comeback from Sunny Hostin.
That part is true, but as you are a student of Dr. King, I'm not only a student of Dr. King, I know his daughter, Bernice, right? So I'm going to get to my question.
Go ahead, go right ahead.
I think the premise is fundamentally flawed. You claim that color blindness was the goal of the civil rights movement, based upon Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, content of character versus the color of skin. Bernice, Dr. King's daughter, points out that 4 years after giving that speech, actually, Dr. King also said this: a society that has done something special against the Negro for hundreds of years must now do something special for Negroes. He also said in 1968, it was about less than a week before he was assassinated, this country never stops to realize that they owe a people kept in slavery for 244 years. So rather than class, he did write about that earlier on. Right before his death, he made the argument for racial equality and racial reparations. And so your argument for color blindness, I think, is something that the right has co-opted. And so many in the Black community, if I'm being honest with you, because I want to be, believe that you are being used as a pawn by the right and that you're a charlatan of sorts.
He's not a Republican.
So how do you...
He's never voted for a Republican.
You've said that you're a conservative.
No.
No, you did. You actually said that in the podcast that you did 2 weeks ago.
I said I was a conservative.
Yes, you did. So, but my question to you is, how do you respond to those critics?
Okay, let's give it. Let him answer. Yes.
So first of all, I do not know who gave her the vote to speak on behalf of all Black people, right? If I got the vote, it would be a hard nay, a hard one. Second of all, she did not come here today to ask questions. Not the case. She came here to make statements and to make bold ones, right? She's talking about, you're a Republican. He's stating no. The rest of her panel is saying no, he's not a Republican. Then she calls him a charlatan. And I'm like, damn, what does charlatan mean? So I hop on the Googles, find out it means to be a fraud. That's a pretty bold statement to make to a guest that's coming onto your show. Typically speaking, in shows like this, the guest would be the wild card, right? You can navigate the questions any way that you want in hopes to gear the conversation a certain way, but you still don't really know how these guests are going to operate or answer these questions. In this case, she is by far the biggest wild card. She has a very tunnel vision approach to how she wants to operate. She is not about to take an L today. That is her approach. And for her to come out and just start frying this dude up with no evidence, I don't even know what to say. This is a nationally broadcasted television show with a production team. Somebody about to get fired today. For real. Let's find out what Coleman has to say to this.
I think it's very important. The quote that you just pointed out about doing something special for the Negro, that's from the book Why We Can't Wait that I just mentioned.
Yes.
A couple paragraphs later, he lays out exactly what that something special was.
Yes.
And it was the Bill of Rights for the Disadvantaged, a broad class-based policy.
But he also says you must include race.
No, he didn't. He says it's
Yes, he does.
Okay, well, everyone should go read the book Why We Can't Wait. Let's not get sidetracked by that.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been co-opted by anyone. I've only voted twice, both for Democrats. Although I'm an independent, I would vote for a Republican, probably a non-Trump Republican if they were compelling. I don't think there's any evidence I've been co-opted by anyone, and I think that's an ad hominem tactic people use to not address really the important conversations we're having here. And I think it's better, and it would be better for everyone if we stuck to the topics rather than make it about me with no evidence that I've been co-opted.
I want to give you the opportunity to...
Yo, there is definitely a gap in terms of informational understanding with regards to MLK's book, right? he manages to take the small excerpt that she mentions, expand beyond that in stating what happens a few paragraphs later, broadening the explanation of MLK's overall proposed Bill of Rights for the disadvantaged. It's clear. She tried to argue back, stating that she's also a student of MLK. This brother seems to be a graduate of the teachings within this book. When he mentions, let's not take ad hominem tactics, right, in the approach to this conversation, again, I'm not the brightest guy in the world, so I hopped on Google. Ad hominem, definition. Meaning, she literally was attacking not the points that he was making, but throwing attacks towards him. I mean, if a conversation ever goes that way, there is a clear winner and a clear loser of this argument. By far, Coleman Hughes is kicking in teeth, and he's doing it in a professional fashion. You gotta love it, man. Let's see what she's got to say.
Respond to the,
I appreciate
the criticism.
I appreciate it. There's no evidence that I've been co-opted by anyone. I have an independent podcast. I work for CNN as an analyst. I write for the Free Press. I'm independent in all of these endeavors, and no one is paying me to say what I'm saying. I'm saying it because I feel it.
Yes. Alyssa.
So that right there is the final stamp to the conversation between Coleman Hughes and Sunny Hostin. Appreciate the likes. Want to hear from you guys in the comments section. Throw a subscribe. Show your boy some love. Maybe I get that hairline back, go to Turkey, bring it all back, but nah. I'm too insecure to look insecure. You feel what I'm saying? So I'm gonna keep it bald. This here's the bald truth. I appreciate it. Stay tuned for the next one.